Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hey there, Herman and Corn. So, as we've talked about in many episodes now, my wife and I became parents 7 months ago. And one of the things about becoming a first-time parent, I think, is you see how quickly life becomes vastly more busy. I feel like our lives before this were also pretty busy. We both run our own businesses or are self-employed, depending on how fancy you want to make us sound. But my wife actually legitimately runs a limited corporation. I'm just a humble sole trader. But both of us do work for ourselves, and we're bringing up a child without family in this country for either of us, which makes it, I think, a lot harder. Not that I would dissuade anyone ever from having children, but it becomes a very, very big workload for two people. And one of the things, as stuff has just been piling up, ranging from expenses need to be filed, nappies need to be bought. I'm just trying to think what's on my to-do list today. I've two things to pick up. I have a work call at 4. I need to have an apartment meeting. I need to open a new bank account. We just moved banks. We're preparing for a move. We need to buy a HEPA filter. That's just the first 10 things that jumped into my mind. And one of the institutions that we've wanted to do is have a weekly family meeting in which we kind of plan out all the things that we both need to do, my wife and I, kind of like a team. I mean, as a team, I was going to say kind of like a team, but we are a team, but kind of like a team meeting in the context of an office or anything else. Now, I've certain things a couple of friends have had in their calendar, like family meeting, and I thought, oh gosh, that seems really wrong. Why would you want to turn your household into like kind of a surrogate corporation? But I've come around to the idea. The other thing that I'm a big enthusiast of, and which I want to integrate into these, is voice recordings. I've mentioned so many times that I think one of the best AI tools that has become really accessible is speech-to-text technology, and just recording the meeting, then running it through Gemini for a transcription and saying, just give me a transcript. So even the process of creating a minutes is easy. What I'd like to ask you, Herman and Corn, there's a lot of guides about how to run effective business meetings, because we've all had that experience where something comes on our calendar and we say, I don't think that needed to be a meeting. But very scarce attention has gone into the question of, how do you run good family meetings? We're aiming for once a week. It's a manageable thing without being overly annoying, on a Sunday, which is the first day of our work week in Israel. And yes, Herman and Corn, both of you are expected to attend. What do you think? What are the best practices in terms of setting an agenda, recording it, memorializing the decisions, maybe having a retrospective at the next meeting? Herman and Corn, let's chat about how busy families can stick together and work together through the structure of a family sit-down, all-hands meeting, if you want to sound even more techie and startup-y. Over to you two.
Hey everyone, welcome back to My Weird Prompts. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and I am Corn. I am sitting here in our living room in Jerusalem with my brother, looking out at the city as it hums along in the middle of the work week.
Herman Poppleberry at your service. And you are right, Corn, it is a Tuesday, which means we are right in the thick of it. But for those of you not in this part of the world, remember that our week starts on Sunday. So, while we are recording this on a Tuesday, we are still very much feeling the positive after effects of our Sunday morning ritual. And speaking of rituals and life getting a bit overwhelming, our housemate Daniel sent us a really interesting audio prompt today that fits perfectly with how we have been trying to structure our own lives.
Yeah, Daniel has been in the thick of it lately. As many of you know from episode 357, he and his wife became parents about 7 months ago. And if you have ever been a new parent, or just a busy human being trying to navigate the complexities of 2026, you know that the complexity of your life does not just double when you add a child or a new business venture. It feels like it grows exponentially. It is like adding new dimensions to a puzzle while the pieces are still moving.
It is that sudden shift from managing yourself to managing a tiny, high-stakes organization. Daniel was telling us that between running their own separate businesses, the massive move they are planning for later this year, and just the daily grind of buying nappies and filing expenses, things are starting to slip through the cracks. He is feeling that low-level anxiety of the forgotten task. He wants to know about the best practices for running a weekly family meeting to regain some of that lost ground.
It is a great question because it touches on something we talk about a lot, which is how to apply professional-grade systems to our personal lives without making our homes feel like a sterile corporate office. Daniel mentioned setting an agenda, recording the sessions, memorializing decisions, and even doing retrospectives. It sounds very tech-heavy, but at its heart, it is about connection.
I love that he is leaning into this. Most people hear the phrase family meeting and they think of something very formal or maybe a bit dramatic, like a scene from a movie where the parents sit the kids down to deliver bad news about a move or a divorce. But what we are talking about here is more like a tactical sync. It is about clearing the mental fog so you can actually enjoy your family time, rather than spending your limited relaxation hours wondering if you remembered to pay the electric bill or if the pediatrician appointment was for Tuesday or Wednesday.
Exactly. It is about moving from a reactive state to a proactive state. So let us start with the foundation. If you are going to do this once a week, how do you keep it from becoming another chore? I think it starts with the agenda. Herman, what is the best way for a busy couple like Daniel and his wife to build an agenda without it feeling like they are writing a board report for a Fortune 500 company?
The biggest mistake people make is trying to build the agenda during the meeting itself. That is a recipe for a 2-hour marathon that everyone ends up hating. The secret is what I call asynchronous preparation. You need a shared digital space that is accessible 24/7. In 2026, we have so many options for this. It could be a simple shared note, a dedicated channel in a messaging app, or a more robust project management tool like Notion or Obsidian.
Right. So the idea is that you do not wait for Sunday morning to think about what needs to be discussed. Whenever something pops into your head on Tuesday morning, like needing to buy a new filter for the vacuum, or a question about the joint bank account, you just drop it in there immediately.
Exactly. You are essentially offloading that mental burden the moment it arises. This is what productivity experts call the capture phase. By the time Sunday morning rolls around, the agenda is already 80% written. You just have to look at the list, group similar items, and decide on the priority. And I think it is important to categorize things so the meeting has a logical flow. You have your logistics, which are the boring but necessary things like bills and appointments. Then you had your big picture items like their upcoming move. And finally, you should always have a section for what I call the weather report, which is about relationship and family health.
I love the weather report idea. It ensures the meeting is not just a glorified to-do list. It gives you a structured space to say, I am feeling a bit sunny today, or I am feeling a bit stormy and overwhelmed. But let us talk about the actual execution. Daniel mentioned he is a big fan of voice recording and speech-to-text technology. We have touched on this before in episode 420, when we talked about AI. Powered productivity for professional meetings. How does that translate to a living room setting in a way that does not feel weird?
This is where the technology of 2026 really shines. For a family like Daniel's, where they are both self-employed and incredibly busy, recording the meeting is a total game changer. Think about the physics of a conversation. When you are in a meeting with your partner, you want to be looking at each other. You want to be present. You want to see the micro expressions. If one person is frantically typing notes on a laptop or scrolling through a phone to find a date, it creates a physical and emotional barrier. It feels less like a partnership and more like a transcription service.
That is a great point. It changes the energy of the room. If you just hit record on your phone or use one of those new ambient AI pendants we are seeing everywhere now and let a high-quality AI tool handle the transcription, you can focus on the nuance of the conversation. You can hear the tone in your partner's voice when they say they are stressed about a specific task, which is a data point you would never capture in a written note.
And the technology has come so far since the early days of basic transcription. You do not just get a wall of text anymore. If you use a modern multimodal model, you can ask it to summarize the key decisions and action items with incredible accuracy. You can say to the AI, Give me a list of everything we agreed to do this week, who is responsible for each task, and what the deadlines are. It can even flag things that were left unresolved so you can put them on next week's agenda.
But there is a trap there, right? We have seen this with our own systems. If you just have a transcript sitting in a folder somewhere, it is basically digital landfill. It is useless. We talked about this in episode 419, the idea of the golden hour for contemporaneous notes. Even with all this AI help, you still need that human touch to make the information actionable, right?
You hit the nail on the head. The AI gives you the raw materials, the clay, but you still need to mold it. You need to memorialize the decisions in a way that fits your existing workflow. For Daniel, that might mean taking the AI summary and quickly dragging those tasks into whatever app they use to manage their daily lives. The goal is to create a single source of truth. If you spent 20 minutes discussing which bank to move your accounts to, that decision needs to be recorded in a permanent place so you do not have to have the same conversation again 3 weeks from now because you both forgot what you decided.
It is about preventing what I call circular conversations. Those are the biggest energy drains in any relationship. We have all been there, right? One person says, "Oh, I thought you were going to call the bank." And the other says, "No, I thought you were doing it because you have the login." If it is in the memorialized notes from the Sunday meeting, that ambiguity disappears. It is not about being a micromanager. It is about being a teammate who does not want to let the other person down.
And it provides a sense of progress that is vital for mental health. When you are in the thick of parenting a 7-month-old, every day can feel like a blur of sleepless nights and dirty laundry. You feel like you are running in place. But when you look back at your memorialized notes from a month ago, you can see how much you have actually accomplished. You see that you finished the move research, you updated the insurance, and you finally fixed that leaky tap. That is huge for morale.
Let us dig into the retrospective part of Daniel's prompt. He mentioned holding a retrospective at the next session. In the software world, a retrospective is a sacred ritual for improvement. How do you bring that into a family meeting without it feeling like a performance review, where someone is going to get fired?
It has to be framed as a team exercise. The goal of a family retrospective is not to point fingers or assign blame. It is to look at the systems, not the people. You can use a simple framework like start, stop, continue. Or, if you want something a bit more reflective, the rose, thorn, bud model. The rose is something that went well, the thorn is something that was a challenge, and the bud is something you are looking forward to or an idea for improvement.
I love the start, stop, continue model because it is so actionable. It moves the conversation away from vague complaints and towards specific adjustments. For example, Daniel and his wife might realize that trying to file business expenses on Friday night is a total disaster because they are both exhausted from the week. So they decide to stop doing that and start doing it for 15 minutes every Tuesday morning instead, while the baby is napping.
Exactly. And it allows for a bit of a release valve. If something felt tense during the week, the retrospective provides a structured, calm space to talk about it when you are not in the heat of the moment. You can say, "Hey, last Wednesday when we were trying to get out the door for that meeting, it felt really chaotic and we both ended up snapping at each other. How can we adjust our morning process so that doesn't happen again?" It turns a conflict into a design problem.
It is almost like a post-mortem for the week's friction points. But I think there is a second-order effect here that is even more important than just getting things done. It is about modeling behavior. Daniel and his wife are raising a child. By having these meetings, they are establishing a culture of communication, organization, and mutual respect that their child will eventually grow up in. They are showing the problems are things we solve together, not things we yell about.
That is so true. Even at 7 months, children pick up on the emotional frequency of the household. If the parents are constantly stressed and reacting to emergencies, the child feels that instability. If the parents have a system and they are working together as a coordinated team, the whole environment feels more stable. You are building a foundation of trust.
It is about the overhead of life. Most families are operating with a very high overhead because they are inefficient. They are repeating tasks, they are losing information, and they are spending emotional energy on preventable friction. A well-run family meeting is like a lean manufacturing process for your household. It reduces the overhead so you have more resources for the core product, which is your happiness.
I want to go back to the technical side for a second, because I know Daniel is a bit of a nerd like me. When you are recording these meetings in 2026, there is a massive privacy aspect to consider. These are intimate conversations. You are talking about your finances, your health, your frustrations with your in-laws. You do not want that data being used to train some random corporation's next model.
That is a very important distinction. You probably do not want to be uploading your raw family audio to a random free transcription site. What is the alternative for someone who wants the benefit of AI without the privacy risk?
The gold standard now is local, first AI. There are many tools available today that run the transcription and the summarization locally on your device, whether it is your phone or your laptop. The data never leaves your four walls. If you are using a cloud-based tool, make sure it is an enterprise-grade service where you own the data and it is not used for training. I personally like the idea of a private family archive. Imagine 10 years from now being able to look back at the meeting notes from when your child was 7 months old. It becomes a historical record of your life together, a digital scrapbook of the mundane, which often ends up being the most meaningful stuff.
I love that. It is the history of how you built your life. But let us get practical for a moment. If someone is listening to this and they want to start their first family meeting this week, what is the step-by-step guide?
Step 1 is to get buy-in from your partner. You cannot force a family meeting. It has to be a mutual decision. Sit down at a neutral time and explain why you want to do it. Frame it as a way to reduce collective stress and gain more free time for the things you actually enjoy doing together.
Step 2 is to pick a consistent time and place. It should be a time when you are both relatively fresh. Sunday morning works great for us here in Jerusalem, but for people in the US or Europe, it might be Sunday evening or even Saturday morning. Avoid doing it late at night when you are both ready to crash. And make it a nice environment. Sit on the comfortable sofa, have your favorite drinks ready.
Step 3 is to create that shared agenda we talked about. Start a shared note today and just begin jotting things down as they occur to you. Do not worry about formatting or priority yet. Just get the ideas out of your head and into the system.
And step 4 is the meeting itself. Keep it short. Aim for 20 to 30 minutes. If it goes longer than an hour, you're probably getting too bogged down in the details of a single issue. If a topic is taking too long, table it for a separate discussion later in the week. The family meeting is for coordination, not necessarily for deep problem solving of every single issue.
That is a great rule. It is a tactical sync. If you need to spend 2 hours researching new health insurance plans, do not do that during the meeting. Just assign the task of researching it to one person and move on to the next agenda item. Step 5 is the follow-up. This is where the memorialization comes in. Make sure the action items are visible. If you agree that Daniel is going to buy the HEPA, Filter and his wife is going to open the new bank account. Those should be on their respective to-do lists by the time the meeting ends.
And step 6 is to iterate. Your first few meetings might feel a little awkward. You might forget to record, or the agenda might be too long. That is okay. Use the retrospective at the start of the next meeting to figure out how to make it better. Maybe you realize you need to have snacks. Everything is better with snacks.
Everything is definitely better with snacks. I think we should also talk about the emotional labor aspect of this, which is something we see a lot in the community. Often in a relationship, one person ends up being the default project manager. They are the one who remembers the birthdays, the appointments, and the grocery list. A weekly meeting is a powerful tool for rebalancing that labor.
It makes the invisible work visible. When you put everything on the agenda, you realize just how much goes into keeping a household running. It allows the partner who might be less involved in the day-to-day logistics to step up and take ownership of specific areas. It moves you away from a world of nagging and into a world of shared responsibility. It is no longer one person reminding the other to get things done. It is the system that says these things need to be done because we agreed on them during our Sunday meeting.
I think this is especially important for Daniel and his wife since they are both self-employed. When you work for yourself, the lines between work and life are already incredibly blurry. If you do not have a dedicated time to talk about life logistics, those conversations will bleed into your work time and, even worse, your relaxation time. You end up talking about nappies while you are trying to have a romantic dinner, or you end up worrying about a client email while you are playing with the baby.
The meeting creates a container. It says, this is the time when we handle the business of being a family. Once this meeting is over, we can stop being project managers and just be a couple, or just be parents. It gives you permission to turn that part of your brain off for the rest of the week. It is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? You add a little bit of structure to gain a lot of freedom.
It really is. We see it in every area of life. The most creative people often have the most disciplined routines. The most spontaneous families often have the most solid foundations of organization. If you know that all the bills are paid and the schedule is set, you can be truly spontaneous on a Tuesday afternoon because you are not worried about what you might have forgotten.
Now, Herman, let us talk about the future. Daniel's baby is 7 months old now. Obviously, the baby isn't participating in the meeting yet. But how does this evolve as children get older? How do we avoid making them feel like they are being summoned to the principal's office?
That is when it gets really fun. You can start giving them small roles as soon as they are old enough to communicate. Maybe the toddler is in charge of picking the snack for the meeting. As they get older, they can have their own items on the agenda. It teaches them about agency, responsibility, and how to resolve conflicts through dialogue rather than tantrums. It is basically a masterclass in life skills that most of us didn't learn until our first corporate jobs.
It builds a sense of belonging, too. The child feels like a valued member of the team whose opinion matters. That is a powerful thing for a kid's self-esteem. They see their parents working together. They see how decisions are made. And they learn that they have a voice in how the family functions.
So, looking back at Daniel's specific points, agenda, check. Use a shared digital note for asynchronous capture. Recording? Check. Use a phone and a privacy-focused AI tool. Memorializing decisions? Check. Move those action items into your daily to-do list immediately. Retrospective? Check. Use start, stop, continue to keep the system improving every single week.
It is a solid plan. And I think for Daniel and his wife, given that they both run businesses, they will find that this actually feels quite natural once they get past the initial hurdle of doing it at home. They already have the skills. They just need to apply them to their most important project, which is their family.
I'm really excited to hear how it goes for them. Daniel, if you are listening, please keep us posted. We want to know what worked and what didn't. Maybe we can do a follow-up episode in a few months to see how the system has evolved as the baby grows and the move gets closer.
Definitely. And for everyone else out there, we would love to hear about your family rituals. Do you do a weekly meeting? Do you have a different way of staying organized? Head over to myweirdprompts.com and let us know through the contact form. We read everything that comes in, and your tips often end up helping hundreds of other listeners.
And before we wrap up, I just want to say, if you have been enjoying the show, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find us, and we love reading your feedback. It keeps us motivated to keep digging into these weird and wonderful prompts.
It really does make a difference. We have been doing this for 433 episodes now, and the community that has grown around the show is just incredible. We are so grateful to have you all along for the ride, from Jerusalem to wherever you are listening.
Absolutely. So, to recap the big takeaways for today. 1. Treat your family like a high-performing team. 2. Use technology to offload the boring stuff so you can focus on each other. 3. Keep it short, keep it consistent, and always include snacks.
And don't forget the wins. Always celebrate the small victories. In a world that can feel pretty chaotic, those moments of shared success are what keep us going. Whether it is a baby sleeping through the night or a successful business launch, mark it down and celebrate it together.
Well said, brother. I think that is a great place to leave it for today. I'm going to go check our shared agenda for next Sunday.
I agree. Thanks for the deep dive, Herman. And thanks again to Daniel for the great prompt. This has been My Weird Prompts. You can find us on Spotify and at our website, myweirdprompts.com, where you can find our full archive and RSS feed.
Until next time, stay curious and stay organized.
Bye, everyone.
There you go. Care.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox Turbo.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts, as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.